political work in Australia. I should say that took place in the post office when I was first appointed Postmaster General. First thing I did was to cut down the telephone rates.
Many nations have looked with longing eyes towards Australia and have desired to possess it for their surplus population. And but for the empire, they would long ago have knocked at our gates, sword in hand. Of ourselves, we could do little against a first-class power. The League of Nations, which some seem to think has made the empire unnecessary, is no substitute for the empire. It has not protected China. It could not protect us. Japan and China are both members of the League, yet Japan has invaded China. Into the merits of the dispute, we need not inquire. But what Australia wants, and what Australia must have if she is to remain safe and free, is an alliance that will come rushing to her aid at the first hint of trouble. And so it comes to this, that Australia's safety depends upon the unity and the strength of the empire. And it is the duty of every good Australian to work zealously to promote that unity and the prosperity upon which the strength of the empire depends.
There is one issue and one only involved in this election. That issue has been defined in Parliament, both by the government and the opposition. This election is accordingly unique. On every other occasion there have been many questions of policy upon which the judgment of the electorate has been sought. In the present case, however, Parliament has itself definitely resolved people should be consulted in regard to a particular issue. The question to be submitted to the people is the industrial policy of the government. That policy, the government affirms, will promote peace in industry and continuity of employment, and will assure the highest wages and best conditions that industry can provide. No more important issue could be submitted to the people. The question which has to be decided is whether the regulation and control of industrial conditions should remain as it is at present under the double and conflicting authority of the Commonwealth and State Parliaments, or whether a definite line of division should be drawn, the Commonwealth controlling those industries which it has the necessary powers to deal with under the Constitution.
It has as its great objective the improvement in our production, and behind all is a determination by competitions of this character to bring up that efficiency, but what is probably more important, to ensure that we are going to produce for your market what you really want and not what we think you want. We are rather at the moment, sir, concentrating upon the pig. You have talked of beef and mutton and lamb, but today it is rather the pig that's in the forefront, and possibly that is a good thing, because I believe there are very great opportunities for we in the Dominion to supply you with baconers in particular, which is going to be no form of competition with British agriculture, but which is really going to be complementary to it and is going to provide you with what you want and will mean an increase, utilization of our own supplies, but will also mean employment in Great Britain.
I welcome this opportunity to speak to the people of Great Britain through the movie tone in news. Australia today is suffering from depression. The Australian government has inherited deficits from its predecessors, financial commitments, and we are told falling revenue. Attempts have been made in your country to belittle the credit of Australia, to suggest that investments will not be sound in this country because Australia has been governed by a Labour government. Let me assure the people of Great Britain that this government of ours will do nothing to destroy the great credit of Australia. We will do much, however, to assist those engaged in industry, to establish themselves in this country, and we will play our part too in bringing about better relations between those who are engaged in the industries of Australia. To the British people, I would say, do not expect that your goods can come freely into Australia if they are goods that we can manufacture in our own country. With regard to the goods we cannot manufacture, gladly will we give preference to those made in our British nation. But to the British manufacturers, I would say, I would invite them to come and establish their industries in our great country. Every facility will be offered to them to set up industries in Australia, to employ people from within the empire in our great country, where the possibilities for prosperity are very great.
It has been a great experience to me to visit Britain, the country from which we of the Dominions have inherited most of our traditions and most of our customs. I had been prepared for something beautiful, something old, something which possessed the glamour of the past and yet represented the forward movement of the modern world. But I had never quite expected the wonderful blending of age and progress, of old beauty and modern advance that I have found here. The primary object of my visit, of course, is to attend the Silver Jubilee celebrations of His Majesty the King. And we rejoice that our King has been spared so long to set such an inspiring example to his millions of subjects. I bring with me the unanimous wish of the Australian people that he will for many more years reign over his great empire.
We people of Australia, like you people of this great and loved motherland of ours, have one supreme task: to defeat the enemy and to save civilization. Though there are many fronts, there is only one war. So Australia has sent her sons and daughters, her munitions, her raw materials and her food supplies to every front of this world war. We hope and pray that we can do more. We will do more. Now the war is coming right to Australian shores. The defence of an island continent like Australia, 25 times the size of Great Britain and Ireland, with huge stretches of uninhabited coastline, is a tremendous task for a population which is less than that of Yorkshire and Lancashire. The Japanese hordes are daily coming nearer to our land. The real and only meaning of Australia's anxiety is her keenness to have the weapons in her hands to attack the enemy at all vital points in the quickest and most effective way.
I'm very sorry to make an appearance in this battered shape, but the fact is that I had a very unsuccessful argument with a Canberra footpath yesterday. However, here I am, leader of my own party, for better or for worse, and looking forward to an attack on the great problems of Australia.
Australia, some people say, is trailing at the heels of imperialist America. All I need say is that Australia is British and has a great and tried and common family allegiance under the Crown. But Australia knows, and so do the communists, that the closest concert between the United States and the British Commonwealth is vital to the common defence. We will work incessantly to strengthen this great association, just as the communist powers and their overseas friends will work incessantly to divide and destroy it. The time has therefore come when we must present, so far as we humanly can, a common front backed by a common power. The free world cannot continue to negotiate from weakness or unpreparedness. With all the goodwill in the world and with the most heartfelt desire to make an end of war, we must be ready to meet it if it comes.
I appreciate the great honour to be Prime Minister of Australia. I have been elected to this task under most extraordinary circumstances and times. We in Australia have to take stock of ourselves. We have got to take our heads out of the sand and recognise that the British Empire is up against the toughest proposition and is going through the most critical period of its whole existence. Men and women of Australia, we are at war with Japan. That has happened because in the first instance, Japanese naval and air forces launched an unprovoked attack on British and United States territory. Because our vital interests are imperilled, and because the rights of free people in the whole Pacific are assailed. As a result, the Australian government this afternoon took the necessary steps which will mean that a state of war exists between Australia and Japan. Tomorrow, in common with the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and the Netherlands East Indies governments, the Australian government will formally and solemnly declare the state of war it has striven so sincerely and strenuously to avoid. Throughout the whole affair, and despite discouragement, the Australian government and its representatives abroad struggled hard to prevent a breakdown of discussions. Australia encouraged the United States to retain the diplomatic initiative on behalf of the democratic powers. We did not want war in the Pacific. The Australian government has repeatedly made it clear, as have the governments of the United Kingdom, the United States and the Netherlands East Indies, that if war came to the Pacific, it would be of Japan's making. Japan has now made war. I point out that the hands of the democracies are clean. The discussions and negotiations which have taken place between Japan and the democracies were not merely empty bandying of words on the democracies' part.
The full cabinet today directed the War Cabinet to gazette the necessary regulations for the complete mobilization and the complete ordering of all the resources, human and material, in this Commonwealth for the defence of this Commonwealth. That means clearly and specifically that every human being in this country is now, whether he or she likes it, at the service of the government to work in the defence of Australia.
Ladies and gentlemen, I deem it quite an honour to appear before you this evening as Minister of State for Trade and Customs to introduce to you an all-Australian talkie program produced by FD Film Studios for the entertainment of Australian picture lovers. The production of this program marks a new era in Australian industries. The wonderful progress made in the motion picture industry from the days of the silent film to modern talkies is indeed a romance. The cinematograph has captured the popular imagination as an entertainer and as an educator. There is no other form of entertainment that appeals so much to the rising generation. We send nearly £1 million a year to America for motion pictures.
Good evening, listeners. You might be interested to know of what Australia has received in the way of reparation, drawings and technical knowledge from Germany. Armed with many of the inner secrets developed by German industry, Australian manufacturers have been able to improve their production in ways that help to bring Australia into the front of technical know-how. The value of this knowledge cannot be measured in terms of money. Nearly 6,000 different reports covering important phases of German manufacturing industry are held by the Division of Industrial Development. About 2,000 of these are of special defence significance. The remainder are freely available to industry, and already more than 200,000 copies have been placed in the hands of manufacturers and others. In addition, the Division of Industrial Development possesses film records of many thousands of important German documents, containing details of secret processes, drawings of special machines, factory layouts, patents and specifications.
At 7:30 tonight, I'll be explaining the highlights of the budget to members of the government parties, and then, of course, at 8 o'clock, the budget in the House.
And what time did you start work?
Well, about dawn this morning.
Is this a day that you dread?
No, it brings to culmination a great deal of work earlier in the year, and frankly, I'm very glad at that stage to have unloaded in the form of the budget statement a lot of the preliminary work which has gone into it.
Do you get any chance to relax at all? Take your coat off and put your feet up?
Not on budget day, indeed not many days while the Parliament is in session. Or perhaps I should say, not many days in the course of a year while one holds this position.
I'm glad to have been invited to speak tonight in support of Mr. Albert Cook, MLA, who is again, of course, the candidate for the state electorate of Benalla. I'm glad to speak on behalf of Mr. Cook and in support of Mr. Cook because I can do so with complete confidence. I have not only known Mr. Cook for very many years indeed, but I have worked as a fellow Member of Parliament with him for many years. Indeed, Mr. Cook and I have, for a long period of both our parliamentary representation, represented the same area and the same people.
Well, they're many and varied, but I have a prepared formal statement which I think perhaps I could read because that would put in short compass the general impressions that I have. And this is the statement. The first landing of man on the moon, is a success which excites the wonder and admiration of us all. The United States has achieved a great and peaceful triumph for mankind generally. All Australians congratulate the United States, the three astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Edward Aldrin, and Michael Collins, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and those people all around the world who have been associated with this Apollo mission. Australia is proud to be playing a part in this adventure through its tracking stations, through the Parkes radio telescope, and through other facilities. This moon landing will begin a new era in space science and technology, and it demonstrates in the most dramatic way what man can do by the application of advanced technology for peaceful uses.
It's a strange thing, but everyone seems to think I'm a person of tremendous ambitions. I don't think I am. I'm a tremendous worker. And if I'm given a job to do, I work at it. And if it takes me to some other goal, and it's a goal of a kind that most people in the world would like, or most people in Australia would like, of course I'm glad when I've got there. I think my wife would answer this question better than anyone else, but I don't feel the slightest bit excited or emotional, and you'd be the best judges of as good a judges of this practically as she is. I've taken it in a composed way because I've been here for a long time. I've seen prime ministers come and go. I've seen ministries change. So I hope that what I will be able to do is, with the cooperation of my colleagues in the Country Party and my own party, I hope we can make this a very successful government, and I'll do as much as I can, all I can, to ensure its success.
Well, may we say, God save the Queen. Because nothing will save the Governor-General. The proclamation which you have just heard read by the Governor-General's official secretary was countersigned Malcolm Fraser. Who will undoubtedly go down in Australian history from Remembrance Day 1975 as Kerr's Kerr.
I want to say that I, from this moment, resign from the leadership of the Liberal Party. I will not contest the leadership of the Liberal Party. I would also like to say that I think Australia is handed over to Mr. Hawke and the Labour Party in as good a condition or better condition than any other Western country in the world. I want to make it quite plain that I take total responsibility for the timing of the federal election. I take total responsibility for the conduct of that election. I therefore take total responsibility for the defeat of the government. And I would like to thank all my colleagues and the Liberal Party right around the country for the support they've given, not just over recent weeks, but over the last 7 years.
When all those who had not managed to get away were either dead or wounded, foot soldiers went through the square, bayoneting or shooting anybody who was still alive. They had orders that nobody in the square be spared, and children and young girls were slaughtered as mercilessly as the many wounded soldiers from other units there. Anti-personnel carriers and tanks then ran backwards and forwards over the bodies of the slain until they were reduced to pulp, after which bulldozers moved in to push the remains into piles, which were then incinerated by troops with flamethrowers.
It begins, I think, with an act of recognition. Recognition that it was we who did the dispossessing. We took the traditional lands and smashed the traditional way of life. We brought the diseases and the alcohol. We committed the murders. We took the children from their mothers. We practiced discrimination and exclusion. It was our ignorance and our prejudice and our failure to imagine that these things could be done to us. We failed to ask, how would I feel if this was done to me? As a consequence, we failed to see that what we were doing degraded us all. Guilt, I think we've all learned, is not a very constructive emotion.
It is also about having an uncompromising view about the fundamental right of this country to protect its borders. It's about this nation saying to the world, we are a generous, open-hearted people, taking more refugees on a per capita basis than any nation except Canada. We have a proud record of welcoming people from 140 different nations. But we will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
Today we honour the Indigenous peoples of this land, the oldest continuing cultures in human history. We reflect on their past mistreatment. We reflect in particular on the mistreatment of those who were stolen generations, this blemished chapter in our national history. The time has now come for the nation to turn a new page in Australia's history by righting the wrongs of the past and so moving forward with confidence to the future. We apologise for the laws and policies of successive parliaments and governments that have inflicted profound grief, suffering and loss on these our fellow Australians. We apologise especially for the removal of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children from their families, their communities and their country. For the pain, suffering and hurt of these stolen generations, their descendants and for their families left behind, we say sorry.
Minister. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and I rise to oppose the motion moved by the Leader of the Opposition. And in so doing, I say to the Leader of the Opposition, I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not. And the government will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. Not now, not ever. The Leader of the Opposition says that people who hold sexist views and who are misogynists are not appropriate for high office. Well, I hope the Leader of the Opposition has got a piece of paper and he is writing out his resignation. Because if he wants to know what misogyny looks like in modern Australia, he doesn't need a motion in the House of Representatives, he needs a mirror. That's what he needs. Let's go through the opposition leader's repulsive double standards, when it comes to misogyny and sexism. We are now supposed to take seriously that the Leader of the Opposition is offended by Mr Slipper's text messages.
I now look forward to forming a government that is competent, that is trustworthy, and which purposefully and steadfastly and methodically sets about delivering on our commitments to you, the Australian people. Today, the people of Australia have declared that the right to govern this country does not belong to Mr Rudd or to me or to his party or to ours, but it belongs to you, the people of Australia. It is the people of Australia who determine the government and the Prime Ministership of this country, and you will punish anyone who takes you for granted.
I want to thank the Australian people for the support they've given me and my government over the last nearly 3 years. We've been able to achieve, as a progressive government, as a progressive Liberal coalition government, enormous reforms and very, very substantial achievements. You know, the foundation of everything you do in government is a strong economy, and we have delivered, as we promised, jobs and growth. You may have heard that before. We've got record jobs growth in Australia last year. We have strong economic growth, 3.1%, as you know, higher than any of the G7 economies. And that has enabled us to do so much more. Despite the minority position in the Senate and the one-seat majority in the House of Representatives, we've been able to deliver substantial taxation reforms, much more than many of you, probably any of you, thought possible. Substantial personal income tax reforms, the biggest in more than 20 years.
We will need an independent inquiry that looks at what has occurred here so we can learn the lessons. Now, there will be debates about the timing of that. We are in the middle of dealing with the pandemic right now, and I understand some of the hesitations that have been expressed about the timing of that particular inquiry. Our purpose here is just pretty simple. We'd like the world to be safer when it comes to viruses. It seems like a pretty honest ambition that I'm sure most people in the world would agree with. So it'd be great if we could achieve that, and that's the spirit in which we're pursuing this, and I would certainly hope that any other nation, be it China or anyone else, would share that objective.
My fellow Australians, it says a lot about our great country that the son of a single mum who was a disability pensioner, who grew up in public housing down the road in Camperdown, can stand before you tonight as Australia's Prime Minister. I want to seek our common purpose and promote unity and optimism, not fear and division. Together we can end the climate wars. And tomorrow, together, we begin the work of building a better future.